When you think of a palace, you probably picture something like this. But this is Versailles. And trust me, it's so much more than just a beautiful building. For centuries, it's been a symbol of absolute power, a masterpiece of art, and yeah, the stage for some of history's biggest, most dramatic moments.
I mean, just look at it today. It's one of the biggest tourist draws on the entire planet. We're talking 15 million people a year walking through its halls and gardens. That is a staggering number of people, all trying to get their heads around the sheer scale and opulence of the place.
But here's the kicker, the really wild part of the story. This magnificent palace didn't start out as a palace at all. So, how on earth did a humble and frankly despised hunting lodge become the most powerful and influential palace in the world? Well, that's the story we're going to dig into.
All right, so to really get Versailles, we've got to rewind. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, to its origins under King Louis XIII and, more importantly, the massive ambition of his son.
So get this, a courtier at the time wrote that the original hunting lodge would not inspire vanity in even the simplest gentleman. Ouch. I mean, can you imagine? The place was basically a small brick building in a swampy, remote backwater. It was so unremarkable that people thought it was beneath a king to even be there.
So what flips the switch? Well, a young King Louis XIV takes the throne. And you have to understand, he's basically traumatized. He grew up during these brutal civil wars, called the Fronde, where nobles tried to overthrow the monarchy. He was paranoid, and for good reason. Then comes the final straw. He goes to this ridiculously lavish party thrown by his own finance minister. The guy's chateau was so over the top. Louis was both furious and inspired. He saw it as a threat, so he had the minister imprisoned. But he also got an idea. A very, very big idea. And just look at the result. It's absolutely mind-blowing. On the left, that's the humble little lodge we were just talking about. On the right, that's just 16 years later. It's already the beginning of something massive. Louis decided right then and there he was going to take his dad's swampy hunting ground and make it the undisputed center of the universe. And man, this project would become his life's obsession.
But let's be crystal clear about something. This was not just about building a fancy house. No way. Versailles was a weapon. It was a political machine, a grand project designed to tame a rebellious France.
And what a project. Just look at this timeline. We're talking about a nonstop construction site for basically half a century. It starts in 1661, the Hall of Mirrors gets going in 78, the whole court moves in by 82. It's just constantly growing. It was this massive, ongoing statement of the king's power, and believe me, every other monarch in Europe was taking notes.
And all of this led to something historians have a great name for, the Gilded Cage. Think about it. It's beautiful. It's golden. But it's still a cage. Louis forced all the powerful, troublemaking nobles to come live with him at Versailles. He basically trapped them in luxury, distracting them with endless parties and a ridiculously complex system of etiquette. They were so busy competing for the king's favor, they had no time to plot against him back home.
Now, you can't build something like this without a dream team, and Louis assembled the best of the best. And here's the brilliant part, he straight up poached the top 3 guys, the architect, the garden designer, and the decorator from that same finance minister he'd just thrown in jail. It was a total power move. Later, another genius, Jules Hardouin-Mansart, came in to take things to a whole other level.
Okay, so that's the why. Now let's talk about the how. Let's go inside the palace, because daily life at Versailles was where the Gilded Cage really snapped shut. It was pure theater 24/7, and you can probably guess who the star of the show was. The architecture itself was part of the show. It was a tool of intimidation. Take this staircase. Sadly, it's gone now, but imagine walking up this thing. It was all colored marble, gold, bronze. It was designed to just crush you with its grandeur. Before you even got to see the king, you're already feeling small and insignificant, and that was exactly the point. And of course, there were the parties. Oh, the parties. We're talking lavish balls, concerts, plays, happening constantly. But these weren't just for fun. They were mandatory. And you had to look the part, which meant spending a fortune on clothes. The nobles were basically forced to go bankrupt trying to keep up, which made them completely dependent on the king for money. See how it works? Genius. In a pretty terrifying way. And everything was a ritual.
The king waking up in the morning had an audience. The king going to bed had an audience. Even his dinner was a public performance where he'd eat alone while the whole court just watched in silence. Every single action was designed to reinforce one idea. He was the center of their universe. He was the Sun King.
And you know what? This insane system actually worked for decades. But the world outside those golden gates was starting to boil over. And that symbol of absolute power was about to become a target of absolute fury.
1789, the year everything changed. On October 5th, a massive crowd of women, furious over the price of bread, marched all the way from Paris to Versailles. They stormed the palace grounds and forced King Louis XVI and his family back to Paris. They would never see Versailles again.
After the revolution, the palace was completely gutted. Everything was sold off in over 17,000 lots at a massive auction. We're talking furniture, art, mirrors, even pots and pans. It was a symbolic dismantling of the monarchy itself. For a while there, it looked like Versailles might be torn down completely. Can you believe it? It was just this empty shell used as a warehouse. But then, in the 1830s, a new king, Louis Philippe, had a brilliant idea. He saved it, transforming it into a museum dedicated to all the glories of France. A masterstroke, right? He took this symbol of royal excess and turned it into a symbol of national pride.
And that new identity as a stage for the nation would put Versailles right back in the center of world history, but in ways Louis XIV could never have possibly imagined.
Okay, this is where the story gets some incredible poetic justice. On the left, it's 1871. A victorious Prussia proclaims the new German Empire right there in the Hall of Mirrors. A deep humiliation for France. Now fast forward to 1919, on the right. World War I is over, and where do they make a defeated Germany sign the peace treaty? In the exact same room. You just can't make this stuff up.
And the story's still not over. The palace is constantly adapting. It just hosted the equestrian events for the 2024 Paris Olympics. How cool is that? It's gone from a stage for one king's absolute power to a stage for peaceful global competition.
So we end up back where we started, in a way, in the Hall of Mirrors. Just think for a second about what these walls, these very mirrors, have witnessed. The height of royal splendor, the fury of revolution, the birth of an empire, and the treaty that ended a world war. You see, Versailles isn't a relic. It's a living monument. It has embodied absolute power, survived a revolution that tried to erase it, and even became a place of reconciliation. It just leaves you wondering, what story will be written within its walls next?